You're listening to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry podcast with Jody Livingston and Chris Trent, episode number 66.
Welcome to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry podcast, helping you survive and thrive in youth ministry. And now, your hosts, Jody Livingston and Chris Trent.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the show today. Thanks for tuning in and listening wherever you are and wherever this finds you. Thanks for making this podcast today a part of your day. If it's your first time checking out the show, welcome. We are excited you are here. And if it's not, and you just keep listening, well, we're especially glad that you keep coming back. If you enjoy the show, well, we'd love for you to subscribe to the show so you can get it each and every time a new episode comes out. That'd be fantastic.
I'm a subscriber. I subscribe not just to our show, but to other shows as well.
Yeah, I do. I even listen to them.
Yeah.
I don't just subscribe.
I'm a podcast listener, man.
Well, hey, we are the Longer Haul Youth Ministry podcast.
He is Jody Livingston.
And he is Chris Trent. And you can find us all over the place in social media wise at Jody Livingston and Chris Trent. It's Jody. Everybody misspells it, man. And all the links, resources from today's episode and interview you can find on the show notes page over at thelongerhaul.com/episode 066. That's thelongerhaul.com/episode 066. This is a good one. I wasn't here for this today.
No, yeah. So if you're one of our new folks, man, welcome. And, Jody and I, we're totally a couple of youth pastors, and our summers, now we don't serve together. We serve at two different churches in the Atlanta area, but our summers are like every other youth pastor's summer, and they're nuts. And so trying to find time to record this podcast this summer has been a challenge for us. And you were off at camp last week, but you weren't at your camp. You were speaking at a camp. Now, where was the camp?
It was up in Western North Carolina. So I was up at Teen Valley Ranch, up in Plumtree, North Carolina, which is
Plumtree. I didn't even know that was a place.
Well,
Plumtree.
You can. So, fun fact. This is true. I'm not exaggerating. The camp director told me that they had one of the staff go out to the city limit, the edge of the city limits, drive the speed limit through town, which is 35, and time it from one side to the other. And it was, I think, 16 seconds. But man, it's a beautiful camp, great camp, tucked right in the mountains there, kind of near the Boone area, Spruce Pine, Newland area of North Carolina. Great folks. Good week.
That's good, man. I'm glad it was.
It was fantastic. Yeah, it was great.
I love speaking at camps like that, man. I know you do. You do as well. It's neat to be a youth pastor and do youth camp with your own kids and do things with your own kid. But every once in a while, it's super refreshing.
Oh yeah,
to speak to another group of kids. That's always super energizing to me, and serves as a reminder for me often how much I actually love doing it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's helpful. I feel like, and I don't know, not that you have to be this, but I think because I'm a student pastor, when I'm speaking, whether it's a D now or whether it's a camp, whether it's a training, like I just feel like I'm more mindful of really wanting to come alongside those youth pastors and leaders. And
yeah, man, it's good.
It was good. We had a great time. Took the whole family with us, so everybody was tagging along. Yeah, good to be back.
Well, I wasn't going to let things stop while you were gone. I decided to keep on going anyway.
I appreciate that.
I sat down. We've got we'll talk about it here in a few minutes, but we decided to go ahead and record a podcast. Of course, you knew that. But yeah, man, it was good. And I'm gearing up to go out of town as well for a little bit. And I've got camp coming up here in a couple of weeks. And you've got a trip coming up to.
Yeah, so both of our mission teams leave. We've got a middle school team up to DC and then our high school up to Quebec. So that's like a couple weeks.
Good times. Good times.
Well, so Yeah.
Got big news. Huge news. Would you consider this big news?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big deal. It's exciting. It's exciting.
I'm excited about it for sure. We have a new sponsor.
We do.
We have a brand spanking new sponsor.
Man, and we love these folks.
And this is what's
not just because they sponsor. We just love these folks.
We love them anyway. And the truth is we already use this organization. Both you and I both do already. So, so YM360, Youth Ministry 360, has now come alongside us, and they're going to be sponsoring us for a little bit. And I couldn't be more excited. Because full disclosure, a couple things here. It does cost Jody and I a little bit to put the podcast on. And so when we get a sponsor like this, we're definitely not making money, but it helps us to definitely not. But it does help us to keep the doors open, in terms of just the paying for all the different things, the mailing list and the hosting sites for the podcast and all those different things. And so anytime we have a sponsor, man, it's super helpful to us. And especially we really get excited when it's someone that we actually really, which we've never had. This like second sponsor that we've had since I've been on. But I super believe in these people. And so Youth Ministry 360, and a little bit more full disclosure, this is who I did my book with a couple years back. But Jody, you know this about the story. When I decided that I wanted to do that, I called them first.
Yeah.
And I called Andy Blanks, who is one of the co-founders there, and pitched the idea to him. And pretty soon after that, got a yes from them, and never really looked anywhere else at all, because I just believe in these guys so much. So if you're not familiar with Youth Ministry 360, YM360, here's what's going on.
They do it all. They do everything.
Like, for real, they really have great resources. It's almost like they're 360.
Almost.
It's almost like they're 360.
Almost. They're everywhere.
They do Bible study curriculum. So if you're sitting there and you are in a place where you're like, man, we need to freshen things up. Here we are in the middle of the summer, and you might be looking to the fall, and you're thinking about, hey, what should we be using? Highly recommend you taking a look at YM360.
Well, the curriculum's great because it's,
incredible.
Gospel centered, biblically based. Man, it's really easy to use.
And in the video support for everyone, as far as the trainings that come along with all of them as well, that will help your teachers and help you prepare as well. Phenomenal. And it's super. They've got student devotionals. So if you're in a situation where you're like, hey man, I need to get a devotional for my kid, the devotionals are incredible. Andy writes a lot of those. He's phenomenal. Disciple Now. You're looking for a theme for Disciple Now. Guess what? They got it. Youth Leader Development. I know a guy who's writing a book that is going to fall under that category.
I might know him too.
You might know him too. And then this is one of the things I got most excited about. This has been going on. This is their third year to be doing this. But kid you not, as soon as they announced that they were going to do this, I switched, and this will be our third year. But Generate Camp is with YM360 as well. So now they offer a camp resource as well, where you can spend summer camp. And now, surely by now you've already got this summer planned out. But if you're thinking about a change, man, Generate, it's incredible.
Yeah, and they've already opened.
I'm already registered for next summer.
Yeah, for next summer.
Yeah, I'm totally registered for next summer, and they've got tons of options out there. Also.
Well, and we had Roger on to talk about camp, not just Generate, but camp, back in episode 55. So you can go here and check out that as well.
And it's a phenomenal, and you can get to hear Roger's heart on this. Yeah. So originally, Andy Blanks and Les Bradford, they started YM360. They started building a team around themselves. Roger Davis came on recently, a couple years back, to do the camp thing, and they are just nailing it. And I trust these guys. I trust them with my students. I trust them with the creative thing that I'm doing as far as writing goes. Good stuff, man. And because they love us, hey, they are offering. This is kind of cool. If you go to ym360.com, there's a promo code Longer Haul. So if you just type in Longer Haul, that's good for 20% off your next order.
Yeah.
There might be a couple exclusions. That's like the fine print for anything these days, but 20% off your next order. So just Longer Haul.
Yeah. So go buy one of everything.
Yeah.
And we'll put a link for those guys in the show notes. Man, we do encourage you to go take a look at that. I know they've got a couple new Bible study curriculums that just came out, like 52-week Bible study stuff.
They've got, this is no joke. They've got a mission trip prep book. I don't know if you've even seen this thing, Jody. It is so good. We used it last year for our students. It's a before and after type Devo prep thing for a mission trip that's phenomenal. I mean, this thing is incredible. And so
I've not seen it yet.
Great stuff. Good stuff.
Well, we'll link to that. I'll link to that book specifically in the show notes.
Yeah.
So folks can check that out. Yeah. So head over to ym360.com. Check them out. All they have going on there. Be sure to use the promo code Longer Haul and grab your 20% off for all that. We are super excited to have those guys sponsoring the show.
So thank y'all.
Believe in them. Trust them.
For helping us out.
So much. But today's topic, huge topic.
Man,
big interview.
So if there's a shout out to give, it would be to the folks on our Facebook group that threw down just a whole bunch of questions for this topic when I mentioned it on the Facebook group. But special needs ministry and youth ministry. I happen to serve at Johnson Ferry, and we talk about this story, so I won't give you much here in the interview. But I served with a lady at Johnson Ferry who just a few years back started our special needs ministry, and she has become quite the guru, quite the expert in this. And this interview, Jody, I know you've not had a chance to listen to it because you still have to edit it and everything, but man, it turned out tremendous. It's challenging, it's convicting, but it is helpful because I think almost, if not every youth ministry has to deal with the issue of what do you do with a teenager who has special needs.
Yeah.
And so, so we jump in here, man, with her and Lynn Wilkerson. She's phenomenal. And I introduced her and everything during the podcast. So the interview, so it's good. But yeah, man. So enjoy, man. I hope y'all like it. And Jody, I hope you dig it as well. It's good stuff.
Absolutely. So here is today's interview. Chris interviewing Miss Lynn Wilkerson.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
So, hey, Lynn, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad that you've taken the time to hang out with me for today. Jody is off on vacation this week, and so took some time just to hang out with you here for a few minutes and talk about special needs ministry. So, Lynn, take a second. Hey, can you tell everybody who you are and where you're currently serving?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here and doing this with you today, Chris. So I'm Lynn Wilkerson, and I'm the special needs minister at Johnson Ferry Baptist Church, on staff here where Chris is on staff, and been doing this for almost 3 years now.
That's awesome. So full disclosure, Lynn and I do serve on staff together, and even a little more backstory there. I've been here for 14 years, but around 14 and a half, 15 years ago when I got the phone call to come here to Johnson Ferry, Bobby Gatlin called me and said, "Hey man, our middle school pastor, she's pregnant and she's not going to be middle school pastor anymore. Is this a job you might be interested in having?" And sure enough, that was you.
That was me.
Yeah. So you were the middle school pastor here at Johnson Ferry prior to me serving here. And what's been really cool is the little girl that you were pregnant with then and my daughter are great buddies.
Yep.
They hang out now all the time. So
Big time buddies. Yeah.
big time buddies. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think we are setting the standard.
yeah,
People
yeah,
should do that. People should be friends.
yeah, no doubt. Friends are good. So Lynn, we're going to be talking about special needs today.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of folks are going in youth ministry specifically, how to deal with some of that. But let's get a little bit of your backstory though, as far as kind of what qualifies you for this and the unique situation that's kind of happened in your life to kind of help prepare you for this moment. And that brought you back to the church as a full-time minister here on staff, doing what you do here at Johnson Ferry.
Yeah. All right. So I loved being in ministry, and it was very sad that I was going to step away from that. I was very excited about being married and going to have children because that was a dream of mine. But I was very sad about stepping away from full-time ministry. But as life went on, I have two children. And the first one, Emily, is my daughter who's big buds with Chris's daughter. And then our son came along 2.5 years later. And we realized pretty quickly that things were not as they should be. He was not a typical baby. And we were clueless. And so realized that there were some things going on, and I was not familiar with the special needs world. I didn't know the lingo. They were saying sensory issues, and I didn't know what that meant. But as time has progressed, they were wanting to get someone full-time because the children that were in the special needs ministry here at Johnson Ferry was under the children's ministry, but they were now growing up and becoming teenagers, and they just wanted to get someone else on board that could focus on the special needs. And that wasn't even on my radar. I didn't even think that would be possible, but the Lord.
And you probably didn't feel fully equipped for it either, I guess.
True. Yes. That, man, no. And at times now, I don't feel fully equipped. Sometimes I look in the mirror and go, "What am I doing?"
Yeah.
But so they asked me if I'd be interested, and I was very hesitant in the beginning. But as I prayed about it more, I felt really good about it because, like I said, I loved ministry, and just the thought of having a second chance in ministry, I was super excited about that. And special needs ministry, I think, is an area where we really need to focus on that in the Christian world, not just in churches, but everywhere, because there is such a need for it. So however I can help out, I am game for that. So.
Yeah, no doubt. So a major part of, what we're saying, a major part of what brought you back into this is Isaac. The fact that Isaac has struggled with this. And so you've had to learn that on your own, but I guess that also helped establish for you some compassion towards other parents that are dealing with some of the same type of things y'all are dealing with.
Oh, definitely. When I was in youth ministry,
you served in youth ministry for a while too, like Lynn, as far as you'd already been in youth ministry for 15 years or so.
Yeah.
Am I
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Came here right out of seminary. And, so I'd been doing youth ministry, and, as I look back on that, I really regret that I overlooked kids that struggle with different issues. Autism is something that's kind of come out and has taken us all by surprise. But, there's always been kids that were hyper, ADD, having some kind of issue. And I just focused more on the kids that were listening to me, that were paying attention to what I was talking about. And I have to say, I really regret that, because the kids, the students that need us the most are the ones that are irritating and have a lot going on in their life. They're interrupting, they're, misbehaving a lot of times for a reason. And I just was clueless about that. And now I realize that some of that might have been because they had some kind of special need issue going on in their life. And I just totally blew it off. And that's one thing that if I had to go back and do again, I would focus on the kids that were always hanging around and always wanted to be up in my business. And, like there's always kids that are always at everything.
Yeah, sure.
And they're doing that for a reason. And so that's one thing I would have focused on. So now I realize there are students in youth groups that there's some issues going on, and we need to, if there's something happening, we need to address it and see what's going on, see if there's something there.
Yeah. So let's talk about, so I want to address the big elephant in the room for a second. Did you realize there was an elephant in the room?
Well, there's lots in this room, but I know the elephant.
What's funny is we're actually we're here up in the student ministry offices. She's up in one of our offices, and I'm in the other. But moments ago, before she sat down, they put in about 100 orange life vests for an event thing.
Should I be nervous? They're going to be a water main break.
Yeah. Anyway, so here's what I'm calling the big elephant in the room.
Okay.
You and I, and our listeners can put two and two together. We're sitting here, and I'm the middle school pastor, which means I'm at a church that's big enough to have a middle school pastor. And we're also at a church that can afford to pay a special needs pastor as well. So to me, the big elephant in the room is, okay, well, hey, here they are sitting there talking about this stuff, but I'm in a church where we can barely afford anybody. And most churches do not have a special needs minister on staff.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think a lot of our listeners are probably going to fall into that category. So my goal today, and the reason I, spoke with Jody early on when I first joined the podcast, was like, man, I got to get Lynn on here at some point, is to say, well, how can we contribute to the conversation a little bit in regards to special needs ministry? And what are some things that, even if you are in a setting where you don't have that full-time person that is focusing just on that, what are some things that we could do? So with that in mind, what would you say to the youth pastor who is feeling overwhelmed at the thought of trying to do special needs ministry on top of everything else they have going? What would be the best place to start in your mind? So think about that youth pastor in rural, wherever, and she's got, 15 kids or 40 kids. And maybe at larger, and they've got that one kid, or that two kids that are coming up through their ministry. And all of a sudden now they're having to address this issue.
Yeah.
So what are some things that come to your mind for that person in that setting?
Well, first of all, there's someone listening to this and they're like, we don't have that issue. So maybe I should stop listening now and catch the next podcast on something that I am more interested in. And I say to you, you're going to have this issue, or you already have it and you were like me and you're being stupid. And if I could just be honest, and you're not paying attention to what's going on in your youth group. So, so youth minister, you already wear a lot of hats, and you're just going to have to wear one more. But I beg of you not to try to do this on your own. Even if you are not seeing this need, just trying to do ministry, period, please don't be a Pied Piper. You are not the Savior. And I encourage you greatly to share the ministry and get other people involved. So that means you need to depend on some really good volunteers. And they're not going to line up at your door. You could put out hey, we're looking for volunteers. And if you think that they're going to stand in line to come and help you, you're crazy. That people just don't do that.
And it takes time, right, Lynn?
Yeah. You got to look around your church, and you got to pay attention to the people that are in your church, and what kind of person are you looking for, and look around, get to know people, and the Lord will help you to, come across the people that you need to get involved in your ministry. And for people that you're wanting to work and pay attention to special needs. I mean, it's any age can work with special needs. Special needs kids do not care how old the volunteer is. That's not something that they really is a big deal to them. Mm. So you're looking for people who are compassionate, who are laid back, who, when interruptions happen, they don't take it personally. They just realize that this person's attention span is gone and we need to try to do something else to try to help them to stay engaged. So you're just kind of looking around for, people that, have a lot of compassion in their heart and want to help you out.
So I hear you saying, really the best place to start is you have to realize that you can't do it on your own.
Exactly.
That you do need to be the champion of this.
Yeah.
But you do have to make sure you surround yourself with some people who have the same heart for this as you do, and that can help out with this. And Lynn, you and I are friends, and outside of church world. I mean, and I'm around you enough to know. And tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel like in some ways, I mean, you're 3 years into this, but in some ways, I feel like you feel kind of like you're just getting started. Like in terms of, like, our program has grown a ton in the last 3 years, but I feel like you still are not where you want to be yet.
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, and that's what, and I say that to only say this takes, again, a reminder, this takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not an overnight, we're going to solve this. But you do have to be making steps forward. But the impact is undeniable. Tell me for a second the impact that you've seen here at Johnson Ferry when it comes to how parents have been impacted. Because I've heard just some stories of folks that really were basically kind of unchurched for the most part, and all of a sudden, once we provide this ministry, it's like a whole new option for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, statistics tell us that 80% of families that are dealing with special needs do not go to church anywhere. So
say it again. That's huge.
80%. If if you're in a room and they all have some type of special needs going on in their family, 80% of them do not go to church anywhere. And that could be for many reasons. But the biggest reason is because churches are not providing a program for them to come and be a part of. And being, as a church, us being scared of that, we should just, the first thing that comes to my mind is we should be ashamed of that. We should not, we're putting God in a box by saying, I'm scared to try to start some kind of special needs thing, because one, that's just, Satan's just trying to discourage us from doing it. And so many times people get wigged out about special needs, and you think you've got to have some kind of hospital environment to take care of these kids. And it's really not like that at all. But so that you realize that I'm not standing here shaking my finger at everybody. When I started this, I mean, I have a special needs son. I live with this day in and day out. But to be in charge of a program, I wanted to throw up every Sunday when I came to work. I'm just like, oh my gosh, what if I don't have enough people to help me today, and I'm gonna have to do this by myself? I was freaking out. I'm just like, oh my gosh, calm down, geez. And so I just had to take a big deep breath. And my first weekend of starting this job was a DNOW that they were doing for the special needs group for the very first time. There's a couple that has been championing this thing until somebody came along, and I was sitting at their house, and we were about to begin DNOW, and I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, what have I done? What did I sign up for? I have really lost my mind. I was so scared and nervous, and I was talking to people like they were we call them buddies, that are the helpers with the students that have special needs. And I'm talking to this one girl thinking she's one of the buddies, and she's a participant. And so, I'm like, I can't even tell who has a special need here and who doesn't. I mean, I'm just horrible. This is not going to be good. And I was nervous and couldn't sleep for months after taking this job, because I was just so consumed with, what am I going to do and I just could list off so many things. And I finally just was like, okay, if I'm going to do this job, I've just got to have enough faith that the Lord's going to give me what I need to do this, and stop worrying about it. And I just had to step out. It's kind of like that ledge deal where you can't see what you're stepping out to, but you just got to believe the Lord's going to provide a bridge to go out there and have enough faith. And that, when I did that, I was so, it really changed my life and changed the way I saw my own personal life and the ministry that I was going into, because this ministry is so different from doing student ministry, and especially middle school ministry. And I just had to, look around and depend on the Lord, because I couldn't depend on what I knew. I call it the bag of tricks. I feel like so many youth ministers have. We keep digging into our bag of tricks that we've had for so many years. And my games that I, were go-to, they weren't working. Just the environment that these students wanted to be in wasn't working. I had to start all over again and just depend on the Lord and go, what do I need to do this ministry correctly? So, yeah,
that's good stuff. So here's what's kind of rattling around my brain. I'm thinking, man, so as a program, all the youth pastors that are listening are definitely not called to start an entire program, although maybe God's going to use this to stir that up in somebody's heart. For some of the youth pastors listening, they're just going, man, I've got this one kid, or I've got these two kids coming up. And and as I hear you saying all of that, I can relate to everything you're saying. The idea, because some of it is like, I'm just scared to death. I don't know what to say, what not to say.
Right.
I don't know. I don't understand autism, or I don't understand, the different types. And I'm afraid I'm going to say something dumb, to a parent, or something like that, So with that said, listen, if I'm a youth pastor here and I'm sitting and I'm about to have a conversation, with, a parent, so thinking of some of the folks that are listening, and me as well, to be honest with you, if I'm going to have a conversation with a parent who is wanting to involve their special needs kid in my ministry, so not so much a separate program, but thinking of a youth ministry where now I've been approached, can Johnny, can Susie come and be a part of your Wednesday night program or your
Yep.
Sunday morning program.
Mhm.
So now I'm going to have a conversation. That scares me a little bit as a youth pastor, because I'm like, man, what if I say something ridiculous, or what if I'm offensive? What if I say something offensive to them? Right. So what are some do's and don'ts in that conversation? What can I say and it be okay that I ask? Do I need to stop treating it so carefully? Do I need to just call it like it is? Or do I need to, are there certain buzzwords that come to mind maybe whenever I say that?
Yeah. Well, I see two different types of parents that a youth minister is going to deal with. One that acknowledges that their son or daughter has a special need, and then the other is they are going to ignore it, be in total denial, or they're not going to tell the youth minister. They're not going to acknowledge it because they're so afraid that we're going to say they can't come to church if we tell them that, if they tell us that they have a special needs.
Okay.
And that has happened. People have been rejected. So let's go with the parent comes to you, like you were saying, and says, hey, listen, our son or daughter has special needs. One, them coming to you is huge for them to want to come to church. And if you ignore them or don't meet with them, then you are doing a huge disjustice for your church and for Christ. So it has been placed in your lap, and now you got to do something with it. And so embrace it is what I say. Don't be afraid of saying something that's wrong. I would suggest, and I could give a couple of little lingos of how to say things so that you have a little bit of knowledge. And I would definitely try to find some books on it, and I'll give those suggestions of what you could do. But special needs is so broad. It's not like you can go and read up on, let's say autism. So you become the guru of knowing all about autism, and then this parent's coming to talk to you and their child has Down syndrome. So you're totally, you gotta, so you start with what you got. So this parent came to you, told you what the special need was, and I think parents would be so appreciative if you would just listen to them and hear them out and hear, I'd ask them, what do you think your son or daughter needs to be successful in this youth ministry? What are some things that might hinder them from being a part of the student ministry here? And just kind of hear them out, see what they say, and then go with whatever they're talking about. If they're ADD, then you know that their attention span's not going to be very long. And when they, are disruptive and can't sit past 15 minutes, then you're not getting upset with them. You know their limitations. If they, and whatever special need they're talking about, autism is so incredibly broad. If you've met one kid that's got autism, you've only met that one kid. It could be totally different with another kid that's autistic. So you just have to get to know that one person and figure out what their needs are
and
how to.
Am I right, though, we need to treat each person
independently. Yeah.
And I think I also hear you saying,
lingo. Yeah, go ahead.
But I also hear you giving me permission to walk into that conversation and acknowledge that I am not the expert here.
Yeah.
That hey, listen, here's what you need to hear me say, Lynn. I don't really know a lot about this, but I love you and your family, and I want to love your kid. And can you help me learn?
Yeah.
I don't know what we can and can't do because this is so new to me, but I want to start the conversation
Yeah.
and see what the needs might be and see
They would be so grateful for that. Oh my gosh, they would be so grateful. And
but it's a
they have,
willingness to start the conversation though.
yeah, and just talk. Don't be nervous. Don't be afraid you're going to say something that offends,
Yeah. So flip the
Ask
script for me
them.
though. So what
Yeah.
about the parent though that wants to pretend like there's nothing there? Am I just kind of out of luck on that one? Good luck? Is that kind of
Well, the parent has got, at some point, it's got to come around and realize that they're only going to help their son or daughter if they acknowledge that there's some issues that they need to address. And unfortunately, I don't really think it's the youth minister's position to point them to that, especially if you're clueless about special needs stuff anyway.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You got to be careful. You got to be big time careful there.
Oh yeah. So
not to be giving, clinical advice or,
seriously,
or diagnosing their kid.
For real. So we call them special secret agents. Okay. And so you got this kid coming to your group and you don't have to say a whole lot about the behavior seeing. As soon as you say something, everybody kind of grins that's on your team and they all know who you're talking about. I think every youth minister's got that kind of situation going on, whether they have a special need or not. But so you got a student coming and he, you feel like there's something going on there. But one thing that I say to parents, it's just so that I can help them to kind of start realizing that different things are happening, is I'll just say, hey, listen, I am so glad that Jody came tonight, but I was noticing something about Jody, and I've noticed this several times when he has been here, that and then I just kind of describe the behavior. I don't say he's acting autistic, or I don't say any of the words. I describe the behavior, and then I say, have you noticed any of that kind of behavior at home? And they can either continue to be in total denial or they can kind of fess up. And sometimes that's kind of helped with people to acknowledge that kind of behavior is going on. And then I'll go, listen, I would love to help you with that. And, I don't want this to become a problem or something at church. And so let's talk about it and see what we think would be the best, what we need to do in the situation. And sometimes they open up. Other times they totally lie to me, or they just totally are clueless and don't know that's going on. So now I've presented that to them and I've placed that in their lap and they got to deal with that. But going back, we're in group time and he's got this behavior thing going on. And so that's where my volunteers play a huge role. And we kind of figure out what, you might not know what kind of label to put on the behavior, but you know what the behavior is. So a lot of times I just try to put someone that can be close enough to, hey, listen, do you know how to whisper? Because every time you say something, it's kind of acknowledging, so you have somebody there as a secret buddy to that person that kind of helps them. And like if they get totally disruptive, then that buddy can say, hey, listen, let's go get a drink of water or something. Let's walk out a minute. I feel like you're not hanging with us. And I'll use you as the example. Chris is trying to wrap this thing up and we want everybody to be able to hear, right? Come on, let's go out. So there you have somebody with them kind of being the secret buddy so that everybody's not getting frustrated in the situation. And you've kind of told this secret buddy, listen, the parents aren't really acknowledging this, but, I would love for you to try to be this person's buddy, but we're not acknowledging that you're a buddy. We're not saying that kind of terminology.
But so we're gonna deal with the issue though.
Yeah. You got to, because it's driving everybody crazy, especially person up front. And then if you want everybody to listen, then, you got to address the interruption that's going on during the group time, or everybody's just going to pay attention to the bad behavior, and then they're going to think that no one's going to handle it. And
and what I've seen is, like in all of this, is that whenever you do deal with it, and start making steps towards trying to help whatever situation it is, with whatever kid, and you start becoming for that kid instead of I'm just having to deal with that kid.
Right.
So when a heart change thing happens there, here's what's amazing. Adults, I've seen so many adults, volunteers that work with our students when we do have, say, in life groups on a Sunday morning, when we do have, and I think we probably on any given Sunday have at least a few kids in the room that fall into the category that we're talking about here. But my adults are amazing with it because we've addressed it. But here's the other part, Lynn. Students, teenagers are incredible for the most part. Now, you're always going to have that one example of that terrible kid that's a real, butt or whatever. And
you said butt.
I know, right? 2 middle school pastors. We said butt. Right. So, but most teenagers, if they know what's going on, they're phenomenal with kids.
Right.
Like I watch in the situations I've got on Sunday morning, I watch some of our other students, and they're not, we've got to be careful, obviously, but they're not, bullying's not taking place. Picking on is not taking place. They embrace it and they love it, again, because we've addressed it though.
Yeah.
And not pretended like it wasn't there.
Exactly.
Once you address it and once you start dealing with it, man, all of a sudden it's like there's a shift that takes place. And then you can start moving forward on, sort of what to do about it, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not every kid, not every student is going to want to, be that.
No, I agree. Yeah, 100%.
And so there
Nor
are.
they necessarily be good at it because it's a gifting thing, right? We need to acknowledge it's a gifting thing.
Yeah.
Every adult is not good at being a life group leader either.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And so,
and not every adult needs to deal with special needs stuff either. Everybody's got their own, like our own life experiences a lot of time help us to be able to relate to what's going on in other people's lives. And that's true for a life group leader.
Yep.
And so even though a lot of my volunteers do not have any kind of special needs in their family, they're gifted with spiritual gifts of mercy. And, they really want the special needs ministry to succeed. They want these kids, with disabilities to be reached. And so they're, reaching out, but there's just some that just won't. And I think addressing it and talking about, hey, because in the world we live in, you're going to have to address autism at some point. It's not going to go away. It's really ramping up. I mean, every time I read statistics on autism, the numbers are, lowering, and more people and children and students are being diagnosed autistic. And so to think that you're not going to be around that or not have to deal with that, you're crazy, because that's something that that's the biggest thing about special needs is autism, and you just got to know how to deal with that. And so if someone comes into your group and just getting to know them, what I was going to say a minute ago was, one of the things is you don't describe somebody as special needs person, special needs kid. You say a person with special needs. So if they are a person first, you're sitting in group, big or small, and you're wanting to get to know all these kids, and you see who the ones are the most needy in the group. when they walk into that room, to that group or whatever, the leader should have a humongous smile on their face. Even if you're faking it, I mean, fake it, whatever you got to do, you make that kid feel like they're the most important thing at that moment. Say, hey, ask them questions, find out what their favorite, whatever is, cereal, TV show, game, whatever they love doing. And the more you find out about them, the more you know about them, then, it's just like getting to know everybody else in the group, and you'll see what they're good at. They are good at something. And then, the bonding starts taking place. And the more time you spend with that person, then the better the relationship's going to be. So it's even more important to get to know the person with the special needs, so that you know what they like, what they don't like, just like you would get to know anybody else in the group, so that y'all can bond. Relationships, that is huge. I thought, our church is big, and I thought, so many people, one of the first things that they told me they wanted is they love coming to the holiday services, and they want to be a part of worship, but they hate it when their son or daughter is interrupting, and they get the evil eye from people around, because they think that they're letting them misbehave and not getting onto them. And so they wanted a service where they felt comfortable in that. So I just, I thought, hey, if I offer this service, then we're going to have so many people show up. And I had zero visitors show up. It was a humbling lesson to learn. And the Lord just taught me that even more so in this ministry is I've got to go and I got to make relationships with these families, and I got to win their trust. And I got to, they're even more scared to come into a church, because, I have had teenage boys that are autistic, and they hate crowds. They hate loud noises. They don't want to talk to people that they do not know. And how do we greet people when we walk into a church? We have a welcoming team in the parking lot to attack them right off the bat. Then we have them all coming in, in a crowded atrium area. And then everybody's asking them all kinds of questions, and they don't know any of these people. And so you have to build a relationship with them. I found a secret passage to get them in. Told them time either 10 minutes before things started or 10 minutes after, so they could come in and not be attacked by people. And so just building a relationship with them and their families really made a huge difference.
Well, it sounds like just intentionality too.
Oh yeah. And it takes time. Yeah. Oh man, it takes time. So,
all right. So, hey, let's do this. We asked some questions on our Facebook group, the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast group, which is a great group. If you're listening and you're not in the group yet, come on now. We need you to come on. So that said, let's do some rapid fire. So we don't have a ton of time left. So rapid fire, don't have to go super deep. And if nothing comes to mind, it's okay just to say, man, I don't know that I'm really the right person to answer that question. Okay. So
just don't say, "Oh, that's a stupid question."
Well, you've already called them stupid and dumb and everything else at this point.
Wow,
so
okay,
whatever.
geez.
So
they've already turned me off.
But you're one of us, so you can get away with that. All right. So Jonathan Brown on the group led out.
Wow, you say their name. Okay.
Oh, this is a shout out moment right here.
Okay. All right.
What would be the best way to get other leadership, pastor volunteers on the same page with doing this if they've never seen it or been a part of one before? So rapid fire. So we don't have a ton of time, and I got about 6 questions here. So
yeah. Okay. So I would say I would just present the need. I would show that we've got this group of people that are wanting to come to our church, and I would show that there really is a need, and I would make it easy for them to get involved. Maybe not making them, that they have to lead something or be the one that has to do all this. You tell them, this is what I'm willing to do. I just want you to back me up and before me.
You could lead with WWJD. You could just lead with that. I'm just saying.
Wow.
No, I'm just joking.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, I mean, it's, I think also leading with the stat that you gave earlier, 80% of families with special needs don't attend church.
Yeah.
Grief. That's just overwhelming. Lee Decker, you know that guy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a listener.
Okay.
I try to kick him out, but he keeps coming back. And so anyway, he talks about the buddy system, and he's familiar with what we do because he's one of my volunteers. Obviously, he's about to potentially start a new gig. That's awesome.
Right.
So that said, how do you do how do you do buddies without drawing attention to them or singling them out? Or any quick tips come to your mind there?
So, like, that someone in your group has special needs, but you don't want to make a big deal of it.
Yeah, I think. Well, his follow-up question may help. Maybe a better question is, this is the way he worded it. Maybe a better question is, what is the best way that we can help students with special needs, quote unquote, fit in our student ministries? And now we might could do a deep dive, and we don't have time. But or should that even be the goal, that they fit in? I don't know.
Depends on what that kid. Obviously, the kid with special needs, so that we know who we're talking about here. He's obviously in that group, and is wanting to be a part of that down there. The first thing that I would think of is look around in your group. Is there someone that kind of you want to take a leadership role, or it has a big influence on your small group or your group, that you could say, listen, if you are for them being in this group, and then you get them on board with how important it is that we include them, then if you lead the way, everybody else is going to do the same, and just kind of teach them and how to be inclusive. And I think that's harder for guys than girls too, because guys don't talk a whole lot, about, so so if they're doing a game or something, you get the person that you want to be the leader in your group, to say, hey, come on, hang out with us. And if they take the lead, I think other people will join in.
Great. Okay. So Felicia Leanne Jackson. Felicia Leanne, what up?
That's a mouthful.
It is. So we are always including our special needs students in activities that general students have. And she says, does she, so referring to you, Lynn, do you have any ideas of special needs activities that we can include the general students in to make it extra special?
I wonder what she means.
Well, here's what comes to my mind.
Like special needs Olympics or something?
Yeah, I think, does she have any ideas of special needs activities that we can include the general students in? So here's what I think she's asking. Is there for our special needs students that we could also invite our general students to maybe help make? So I think let me answer by what I think I know the answer is, which is what you do. Example, allowing some of our students to help with, you guys just participated in the special needs prom. Mm-hmm, so what did you call it? Yours was different than the Tim Tebow one, though. Yours was, what was yours called?
Ours was the Dream Big Dance.
So the Dream Big Dance. So that definitely is something that some of our students could have, and they did. Like my daughter was there that night, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
Help out.
So was your son.
Yeah. So was Dylan. Yeah, my son. Yeah. And they went and helped make that a special night. So that's an example. And then I think even like a D-Now type event, our students at D-Now, we did have there's two different things at play here. There would be an example of, we had an entire home of kids that were maybe at a higher level of special needs. Is that am I saying that correctly? Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's the challenge of this whole thing, right? And so they had their own home, but we also obviously had some kids with special needs that were kind of spread out through regular homes as well. Okay.
Yep.
But we allowed y'all to do everything, including the big dress up night thing that we did. And y'all came up, and our students, I've never heard them roar so much.
I know. It was awesome. It was
incredible, right?
Yeah.
So I think some things like that, so far, I don't know if this is right or wrong. I don't know if this is good advice or not, Lynn, but so far in our culture here, acknowledging kids and special needs and doing special things like that, even putting them on stage and letting them do a song,
Oh, yeah.
has been received really well and made them feel special.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got one girl with special needs on Sunday mornings who sings who's on stage in our main worship service in the praise team.
Right. Yeah.
And it seems to be going incredibly well. So anyway.
Yeah. Finding out what they are involved in. So like if you have kids and you don't have a special needs ministry at your church, finding out what they're involved in. Or do they do special needs Olympics? Do they, being involved at your school? A lot of the students around here are involved in special needs at their school, so they know what they're doing. And then finding out, like if someone is trying to do a special needs ministry at your church, volunteering, there's different levels of volunteering. I have people that, they don't necessarily want to be relational with them, but we do a carnival. So they run the carnival game for me. So they're around, they're encouraging, yeah. So yeah, just making yourself available and seeing what's going on and just being a part of their world.
Good. Danny Myers says, if we don't have any special needs students, how do I foster an environment where someone feels welcome? And how do I reach kids with special needs in our community? Anything come there?
Yeah.
Like 3 more questions, so we got to go. We got to fly.
All right. So that one's kind of tough because you're like, if the need isn't there, but I'm telling you, there's 80% families that are not a part of a church. I think just being more aware, looking around, seeing who the Lord's putting in your path.
I tell you what came to my mind there.
That too.
I'm sitting there thinking like, man, and when you're in that public school setting at a football game,
yep,
trying to meet those parents and start to build a relationship with the hopes that might lead to an invitation where you could say, yes, you guys are welcome.
Yeah.
Y'all are welcome. And we'll find something for your kid,
Yeah.
Okay. So James, Holston here, this is a real, just kind of blunt, honest question here. When I have had kids with special needs, I found it a challenge to plan games. I've been mid-game and realized, crap, Johnny can't do this game. I've kind of had to wrestle with the dilemma of special needs kids being left out of various games or activities, or the rest of the group not being able to do certain games or activities because I decided not to do them.
Yeah.
Any advice?
I've been there too.
Yeah, you've been there too. Yeah.
Oh,
and I have.
Oh my gosh.
I think most of us have.
Yeah. Failure, and so here's what I was doing. I was telling you about the bag of tricks. I was trying to pull out games that I have been very successful with middle school students, and trying to do those with the group of special needs that I was working with, and they hate would you rather questions. They just can't handle it. It's frustrating. So I was like, oh my gosh, these games, I bombed so many times trying to figure out a game to do with them. And then on the other hand, I was going to Young Life Capernaum Club, and I thought, I've got to come up so that all these kids won't feel left out. They're in a wheelchair. They can't do some games. But then I was watching the Young Life leaders they were doing Dizzy Izzy with the bat, and there was a girl in a wheelchair. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how's that going to work? She didn't care. They get her up there. They, move her around in the wheelchair, and they just kind of modify stuff. Yeah. So I say, I would keep digging for games that that will include everybody, and just asking different youth ministers, hey, what kind of games do you play? And just, try it with your group and see if it's successful. But don't be afraid of that. And then if the girl, like, for example, if the girl in the wheelchair had this look on her face, like, I can't believe you're doing this and I'm in a wheelchair, then talking to her and at least acknowledging it. Was that insensitive should we have done something different? Or it put her in charge of being down there holding the bat, and they run to her and she hands the bat to them,
Yeah.
they just want to be included. So
Like you're saying, Lynn, acknowledge it.
exactly.
Talk to it. Plan it out.
Yeah.
If you got a game going that night, maybe tell, hey, this is going to be a little different for you, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And, the other thing, too, I'll say really quickly is most special needs kids, not all, but a lot of them do not like messy games.
Yeah.
Well, I was like,
Neither
oh my gosh,
does
what am I going to do now? That's all I know. Yeah. Oh, really? Wow.
At all. Hate them.
Oh man. So, so what would happen is like in our deal, I would say what we were going to do, and I would get these looks of, I am not sticking my face in that. And then I'd go, hey, do you want your buddy to do it for you? And they thought that was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And so, volunteering someone else to get, junk all over their face. So there you
go. Jasmine Vanderwerf. How about that name? Vanderwerf.
Yeah.
I would love to have some advice about the autistic kids we have coming along. They seem to want to be there, but really struggle to be a part of what we're doing and tend to wander away from the group a lot. How can I keep them engaged in our program, or is it okay to give them a pass to wander away? I think we've kind of answered that, Lynn, from the buddy standpoint. I feel like that's a deal where you've got to acknowledge it, and you've got to attach somebody to that. To try to help with that, because I do think wandering away is not, letting them just wander away is probably not going to be the best there.
Knowing their attention span is not going to be quite as long as the other typical kids in your group, and having a buddy there with them, and then they might not like the loud music, so maybe they come in later when the music's kind of calmed down, and then like if they you just really got to pay attention to what kind of day they're having. So like on a Sunday morning, if they've had a really hard morning with their family and they come in, their emotions are right there in your face. Whereas other people can kind of mask it. And even though they've just had the worst morning with their family, you might not know it. You're going to know it with an autistic kid because they're going to either act out or whatever. So you just got to know where they're coming from. And then I would say, be ready for that buddy to be able to modify whatever the talk you're going to do or the lesson, and they go out into a different area and just kind of sit and kind of talk through and make it shorter for them and put it in language that maybe they understand a little better or something. Yep.
Okay. A final question from Facebook here, and then we'll kind of talk through any resources you recommend. But this was a little bit long here, but this is good though. We have a program called Monday School. It's called. It's a separate day of church for special needs family.
Oh wow!
We get a lot of group homes come. Not so much our church kids. It's a ministry we have had for a long time. It brings a couple hundred people, and they do a church service with worship, word, food, talent nights, etc. I wish more churches did this, but my question is, since we have this in place, would it be good to have a class time during our 10 a.m. Sunday church for special needs, or just have everyone in class together as usual, which is what we do? I only know of 4 special needs kids ages 12 and under. Question 2. So let's not go there yet. Question 2. So what's the question again? Let me read through that again. Which more churches? My question is, since we have this in place, would it be good to have a class time during our 10 a.m. Sunday church for special needs?
So I look in my group, and I thought there were several that I'm like, y'all are capable, you're high functioning. You can be a part of our typical
mainstream, everything.
Mainstream's like an old term. So say, typical, or that they're inclusive or inclusion group. And so I just asked them, would you like to be a part of that, and just see what they said? And I was totally shocked. I caused some serious anxiety. They thought I was going to throw them in there, and they didn't want to be a part of it. So finding out what they want.
I think the key what you're saying is to have that conversation, though.
Exactly.
Have that conversation.
Just because you think it's a great idea, they might not think that. And
but
so
if God's laying this on Lorraine's heart, it's possible that maybe there's a need for it. Maybe.
Exactly.
I don't know, but it's not. But I don't hear you saying that it's a terrible idea to have it on Sunday mornings either.
And it's not a bad idea to do the Monday
thing either. Yeah, I mean, especially if it's something working, man. Yeah. It's interesting.
Find out what they want to do.
Yeah. She follow up question was, since we don't have a lot of kids, how would we combine ages as there are a couple older teens? So quick version there of, is there anything youth pastors need to be mindful of or careful about when it comes to grouping kids? Do you here? Let me ask you this: do you basically think it's elementary school and middle school and high school? It's kind of like teens. Is that kind of how you group that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So kind of stick to the normal what you would.
Yeah, because and just know that you're going to have to modify it for them. They're not going to go. They're not going to be able to. Go as deep as some of the others. So they're not abstract thinkers most of the time. And
it is hard, Lynn. I got to tell you, it's hard at times though, because I've had a couple situations where, say, a parent approaches me and says, well, my kid who's, 18 actually functions on like a 7th grade level. And I go, yeah, but they're not going to function in middle school ministry like that. Like I just have to, there's too much. Once that age gets up there to that 17 or 18, to combine them, it just there's risk involved. And I don't mean that to sound offensive to anybody, but there just is,
Yeah.
So I think you have to be wise.
You have to look out for the typical kids. You don't want to make it weird for them either. Sure. And so you gotta, it is a balancing act, and it is hard to deal with parents like that. I mean, I know of special needs ministries where they have everyone together, but it's all a special needs group. It's not a typical group, including other people. And it's still, you still need to kind of keep them close to their age, just so that you show them some dignity as well. Yeah. You don't want to
all into one deal.
You don't have to make it so obvious that they're on a 1st grade level when they're in 12th grade, but you just have to be ready to modify. If they're going to be in an inclusion group, you got to be able to modify. And if they want the other, then you have to do self-contained classes where, everyone in there has a special need. And that is tough to, parents want so much for their kids, and you don't have to, you have a huge responsibility as a youth minister. You have to look out for the entire group. And so you're not going to be able to make everyone happy. You have to do what you think is best, what the Lord is leading you to do. Be open if He's wanting you to change. But if you feel like you're on the right path, then you just have to stick to your beliefs and,
no doubt.
You're not going to make everybody happy.
Well, church work. Lynn, this has been awesome. This has been a really solid. We've been going at this for an hour now, and I feel like we could go another hour because we're not going to, but we could. I mean, there's just so much. Maybe we just need to do a follow up at some point. But any resources, any direct websites, books, kind of basic, if I just, want to do just kind of an initial 101 kind of guide, anything come to mind?
Yeah. A couple books I have here in front of me, just, any kind of resource that you can get your hands on, just so that when someone tells you what kind of special need they're dealing with, there's been some that I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I had to go look it up. So there are many books, many resources.
And Lynn, the good news is we've got a show notes page that people can link to. So I'll put a link to all of these
Okay.
So you can just throw them out there, and,
Yeah.
and we'll link to all of them.
It's got this long honking title, but basically it's kids in the syndrome mix of, and then it lists out all these.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So anyway, that's one that I turn to often to find out what
That
that
sounds like a special needs
what
dictionary
is
almost there or something.
exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, and then one that I grabbed hold of that when I was trying to start a special needs ministry that really helped me to. It says for children, but you can adapt it for teenagers, whatever. But it's called Special Needs Ministry for Children, and it's put out by Group.
Okay,
and that was a huge resource. And then Johnny Erickson Tata has a huge ministry, lots of resources. She has a lot of things out there, and I'll just leave it at that. There's some other that we can list, but yeah.
And hey, listen, folks, I know Lynn, and putting her on the spot here. I'm not going to give out her information on the podcast, but if you need to connect with Lynn, I'd be happy to connect the dots there, and I'm sure she'd be willing to have a conversation with you.
Oh, of course.
And so
yes.
Just email me at chris@thelongerhaul.com, and I'll connect you. I'll do an introduction via email to Lynn and let y'all connect. But Lynn, we can't thank you enough. And just listen, I'm a fan of what you're doing and the way you parent and the way, and obviously here I am sitting here 14 years in at Johnson Ferry as the middle school pastor, but I inherited a fabulous ministry. You were already just doing such an amazing job here. And so I appreciate who you are and what you do and the way you love kids and the fact that you've taken, this thing that God is allowing you to experience, and you just continue to keep your eyes on Jesus and fight through it. And you've taken what some might consider lemons and you've made lemonade. That's a really cheesy illustration, I know, but it's true. I mean, it's good. And
Chris, I really appreciate you, and I love that. What the Lord allowed me to be a part of, I get to see it. And it's continuing to grow and go beyond what I ever anticipated student ministry and the middle school ministry at Johnson Ferry to be. And I'm just so proud of the work that you're doing. And he has influenced my daughter, and I am so grateful for that and love being.
Oh, she's done. She's leaving me. She's straight up leaving me. She's straight up graduating from middle school and going to high school.
Yeah. She is, and so is your daughter. But
I don't want to talk about
it. Yeah, well, that you'll have to cross that bridge. But
it's growing up.
No, I appreciate it, and the Lord does. He can, whatever we got going on, he can work it, and he'll use it for good. So thank you so much.
Good times. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right.
That's that. We'll catch us next time, and we're going to end it for today. Thanks, Lynn.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Man, well, there you go. Great interview. Great topic. Man, what a great episode. Super, super, super needed. So grateful that I'm grateful you guys did that, man.
Yeah. Well, Lynn, I can't thank Lynn enough for, taking some time out. And she had never done anything quite. She joked about how she had never really done a podcast or recording like that before. And but it was awesome. She did a great job. And again, I mentioned it in the podcast, but for real, if you need to contact Lynn, just drop me an email and I'll connect the dots. Just chris@thelongerhaul.com, and I'll introduce, if you have some questions specifically for her, and she'd be happy to help.
Yeah. So good. So good. Also, just a reminder, if you haven't already, make sure you check out the sponsor, our sponsor there at ym360.com. All their goodies and good stuff, especially their new Bible study stuff that just came out. And head over there. Use the promo code Longer Haul for 20% off your next order. And make sure you subscribe to the show. Head over, check and sign up to join the super secret podcast group, because that's been amazing.
It's growing, dude. We're getting close to 100, man. I'm pumped.
Yeah, it's good. it's fun, and you can kind of give some input along the way. That's kind of that we've done that in the last few episodes. That's been really helpful. For folks to do that, and so.
All right, Jody. Well,
that's it for this time, man.
That's it, man. Hope you have a great. I'm off on vacation. I'm taking some vacation, bro. I'm out.
I don't know what that word means.
I'm about to take some time. It's the 4th of July, man.
Yeah.
Just chill a little. I'm gonna do a little fishing, and I may go fly my kite.
Good for you. I'm gonna be mission trip prepping. So,
and I'm gonna eat at the original Oyster House in Gulf Shores, Alabama. And am I making you jealous? I'm trying to make you jealous. Is it working?
Yeah. Yeah. You
more than
had
when
me jealous.
You send me pictures from Chewy's all the time, you jerk.
you had me jealous when you said vacation. That's it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Yep. We'll catch you in the next episode.
Have a good summer.
Thanks for listening to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast at www.thelongerhaul.com.